Hi, I'm Rob King and welcome to the Tepache Retrospective. This is going to be an explosive one. Yep, I managed to blow the bloody top off the entire bottle. That start was a little unexpected. My nice clear Tepache is now a little bit cloudy from the yeast it threw up from the bottom of the bottle. So despite this being a fairly simple drink, we do actually have all the usual suspects lined up as part of this retrospective. The schedule, the costs and the price per pint. Costs amazing. And of course, final evaluation and ranking. Not forgetting, of course, those lessons learned. Remarkably, there were quite a few. Let's get on with it. This is a very simple recipe that you can prepare at home without any specialist equipment. The schedule is all pretty quick. The fermentation takes place over 3 to 4 days. We whop it in the bottles and it's pretty much ready to go soon after. Now in practice we were drinking this within a couple of weeks, but in actual fact you could probably have started drinking pretty much instantly. But I was looking to create a little bit of carbonation, which was partially successful. It was either went from none at all or blooming explosive. But lots of fun was had all around. Now 50% of the costs that I incurred were by using the bottled water, and I do think this would have been a great example where I could have used tap water and a little bit of a Camden tablet. It is that personal choice due to my local tap water, but even so, this is a wild yeast that is on the pineapple, and the pineapple skins and rind is all that's used in the recipe. Now the only costs incurred were from the sugar, starting with the brown sugar I used for the fermentation. Now this is a substitution from the Mexican cane sugar that is the true ingredient. Now that is called something in the region of pilongello. Not sure exactly how to pronounce that, but I will look to see if I can get some of that in the future, because I have some lessons learned. That means I'm going to revisit that and reapply some of those lessons. The final ingredient then was down to personal choice. When I tasted it, it did need just a little bit more sweetening, and I added some non-fermentable sugar as it went into the bottles. Again though, there was a lesson learned here. I think the final outcome should have been a little sweeter if I'd have used a lower volume of water. Which brings us to that all important price per pint. Now at £2.87 and 3.25 litres in the bag, the price comes out at 50 pence per pint. Bargain, or 44 pence for a 500ml. Albeit I exploded most of this one. Ooh. On to the evaluation then, and I'm going to start with the aroma. Now I love the aroma of this. It is simply pineapple, full stop. There was some cinnamon in this recipe, though I can't get it in this bottle. No, all I get is that wonderful sweet pineapple. Aroma then is very good. On to the taste. Now, this is a lovely, refreshing and light drink, whether carbonated or uncarbonated, but I do personally prefer a little bit of that fizz. The problem is, I think, compared to what the expectations were, is I used too much water, it's too dilute, and therefore it's a little too thin and a little too light on the flavour. I lost a bit of that sweetness as a result. Overall then I gave it a 5, which was average, because I know it could have been so much better. That fizz could have been more consistent, that taste could have been higher if I'd have used a lower volume of water, and it would be worth me hunting down and getting some of that Mexican sugar I'm not going to pronounce again. Still, you just can't beat. This is an absolute bargain and simple to do at home. And I love pineapple. It is so easy for me to do another. In terms of final ranking then, this comes in 7th place, but that does hide the fact that this was actually a lovely drink, and it was just we were below expectations for what is possible. There is certainly lots more to do when it comes down to the Tepache recipes. Moving on to the lessons learned. Lesson number 1 was a slow start fermentation. I was actually a little bit worried nothing was happening. It just takes a while for it all to kick in. That wild yeast is a little unpredictable, but by day 2 we were rocking and rolling. Lesson number 2 I've mentioned before is the fact I used the brown sugar, but I will look out for some of that Mexican cane sugar to try this one again. It is supposed to provide a slightly sweeter and more complete taste. Lesson number 3 is sweeten to taste part 1. I used 120 grams of erythritol to try and bring up some of the natural sweetness, but I think I needed a little bit more. I should have gone for somewhere in the region of 200 grams of erythritol for the volume to have got the level of sweetness I was looking for, but we're going to revisit this one again in a moment. Lesson number 4 was carbonation, and it varied from none at all to a bit foamy to explosive. I mean, what a range. Of course, a little fizz is what I was looking for, and I would have hoped to have got a little bit more in the glass in this final bottle. But those carbonation bubbles are all there and lovely. Lesson number 5 is the number of variations. Now this recipe seems to have lots and lots of personal variations that people apply, and I think all of them I could have learned a lesson from. For example, 1 to 2 litres is a more common batch size for a single pineapple peel. If I'd have gone down that route, I would have had a higher level of sweetness, I think. My batch size was a bit too big. The second difference is the amount of sugar added. I think I was on the low end of the volume of sugar. It can go up to around 300 or even 500 grams for a 5 litre batch. Now I have scaled up to the 5 litres that I used, but of course you'd normally be fermenting around 1 to 2 litres. And the third variation is the amount of time in fermentation. Now the recipe I used recommended 3 to 4 days, and that's what I followed, but this can go up to 6 or 7 days based on the recipe that you're using. You can also use multiple pineapple peels and rind if you have them available. That would have also been very helpful in this instance. Which of course brings us to lesson number 6 and sweeten to taste part 2. My conclusion here is I fundamentally diluted this far too much by doing a 5 litre batch, and that was the reason why this was not as sweet as I expected, which is why I ended up adding non-fermentable sugar. When I brew this again, I will either use multiple pineapple peels or more likely just a smaller batch. Lesson number 7 then is the water. Now I chose to use bottled water, but for the sake of argument, if I had used tap water, then the costs would have come down to £1.42. That would be 25 pence per pint. Wow. Lesson number 8 is clarity. Now in the bottle this came out beautifully clear, and there was a thin layer of yeast solid at the bottom of the bottle. When I exploded it at the beginning of this video, that mixed it all up and it looks a little hazy like this, which is such a shame. That clarity was incredible if I'd have managed to maintain it. This then is the conclusion. This is a wonderful thing to try. It is really cheap, that appeals to me. It's pineapple, that also appeals to me. And also it has lots of opportunity to improve in other recipes. I'll be back again with an update in how this is all going. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Happy homebrewing everyone. Cheers. Cheers.